My name is Vincent Stedy, and I'm born in Belgium in '72. I have two degrees. One is biochemical engineer, specialization genetics, and the other one is Master of Engineering in Post-Harvest Technologies. Both of them I studied in Belgium and also in Ireland. I'm living since 8 years in Madrid, in Spain. Living in Spain, of course, you have some differences compared to Belgium. It's more in the way people, I mean, some habits or some cultural parts that you can see in your daily work as well. I think it's a difficult one is when you have a meeting, people tend to come late. So when you start a meeting at 12 o'clock, you normally start it at 12:15, 12:30 because people are only arriving around 12, 12:10. So this is something which was very strange for me in the beginning. Then you also have the fact that uh, during discussions, people disrupt you. So they never let you speak until you finish your sentence. So this is also some cultural issue that in the beginning was very strange because you don't want to disrupt another person, and you have to do it, otherwise you cannot speak. Action Against Hunger is an NGO. It's a non-profit organization, and we work in more than 45 countries, and we service about 16 million beneficiaries. And what we do is, as the name tells you, we work and we fight against hunger, basically, which means that our main sectors of work will be on nutrition, health, food security, and livelihoods, and also on water sanitation and hygiene. My job position in the NGO is operations director. We are in a network because it's a network. We have five operations directors. I'm responsible for about 18 countries, and there are two main working lines. One line is the contract management or the contract implementation. So we do receive money from donors, public donors, and some private donors, and we need to implement this through projects. Every project has a contract, and we have about 300 contracts a year. And I need to ensure that through country offices and local teams, we implement these contracts in the best possible way, like we agreed on. Beside of that, we also have a whole aspect of fundraising. So I'm responsible of capturing about 70 million funds a year, and mainly public funds. Um, well, it's about 8 years that I'm living in Spain now. There is not a major problem with the administration, I have to say. I mean, it's a very similar country to Belgium. I do speak Spanish. And I think it's important because even though our teams are very international, we have several different nationalities in the office in Madrid. I have a team of about 25 people on contract, and then about 20 people a year that are students, and they come from different parts of Europe. And but still, I think the main organization is Spanish. I have a lot of meetings in Spanish. I mean, a lot of coordination meetings with other NGOs, with the government. So I think it's very important to know the language, and not only for working purposes, also for informal meetings with staff members. It's important to have another relation through language, and you won't have this if you only speak in English. So I try to use and English and French and Spanish in the office according to the people that I'm talking with. If you think about local customs, you don't have so many differences in Spain, but if you think about it internationally, I think it's more important to respect local laws. because at the end you go to a country and the laws, other laws you have to follow. Habits depends. I mean, there's a lot of traditions which doesn't have to be so positive neither. So I think you have to respect it as much as possible, but you don't have to follow. And sometimes you need to give messages that some traditions or habits are not the best ones. I mean, just thinking about how women are treated at work in different countries. Well, I mean, women or the whole gender issue on equality and equity. It's important to bring some important messages to some local cultures, even though it might be a tradition not to respect these type of aspects. Well, of course, most countries I've worked in Europe are very similar to Belgium. The whole European system is very similar, either from Ireland, Switzerland, or even Stockholm or other places I've been working in Europe. It's very similar. Then I mean you have the near neighborhood basically, which also includes Turkey and Georgia and all these countries, which for me are very similar. Of course, Turkey depends because Istanbul it's like Europe, or Belgium. If you go further south, it's a little bit more different. Then I mean I think areas like Middle East are also quite similar. I don't see so many differences. I think there's a lot of cultural habits that might be a little bit different, but I mean the way things are functioning is quite okay. Then US, Canada, all of this, it's very similar. Yeah, I mean countries that I've worked in and that are quite different are, for example, China, Thailand. Asia can have a very different aspect. Southern Africa for me was also quite different, especially when I was working in countries like Swaziland or Lesotho, or Malawi. Then I think Latin America depends a little bit where. Argentina is very Western European, but when you go to Bolivia or when you go to some indigenous communities of Guatemala, you will see very big differences. My experience of working in different countries is very positive. I think it's positive in the way you develop yourself at work, professionally, in different aspects in terms of management, management for different cultures, crisis management, the way you have to adapt and be flexible, the way you deal with people and delegate, the way you develop your leadership. All of this, I think it's very positive working abroad, and I think it develops and improves your competencies and the way you think and analyze for your job. I mean, it's very important. My experience of working in different countries is very positive. I think it's positive in the way you develop yourself at work, professionally, in different aspects in terms of management, management for different cultures, crisis management, the way you have to adapt and be flexible, the way you deal with people and delegate, the way you develop your leadership. All of this, I think it's very positive working abroad, and I think it develops and improves your competencies and the way you think and analyze for your job. I mean, it's very important. I never had a very hard time. I think the most difficult time is when, for example, you get some punctual cases like a corruption case, or maybe there is a problem between European governments and that country. So, I mean, there might be some people on the street that might be a little bit more aggressive or offensive. In that case, yes, but in the long term, I think as long as you like your job, I think there's no problem of living abroad. I mean, very very few cases where I had difficulties. I would certainly recommend people to work in other countries. As I mentioned before, I think it's very enriching your professional competencies. It gives you a big range of tools and management ideas. I think you're much more flexible, adaptive. Also, I think the way I've been contracted with contracts for 3, 4 years every time is also the future, because I don't think in Belgium or in Europe these kind of contracts for life will be here in the future. So I think you have to keep on being competitive in your sector, and probably you have to change different jobs during your lifespan. So I think it's important, this type of experiences, and you open up, and you're competitive the whole time, because you have to renew yourself every time. If I have to choose a country where I spend the rest of my life and which I would like, I first of all I don't have the concept of staying the rest of my life in one country, so it would already be different countries. Also, I think my first choice would be according to the job position, not the country itself, because I think it's very important, the position itself, more important than the country. I think the country you can adapt anyway. So, and I've been working even in different countries as Syria or Palestine or others. I mean, but I think the position is the most important one, and then you adapt yourself.